Carlos de Aldecoa is president of Eximus Coffee, Cadeco Industries, and Buffalo Bayou Distilleries. Located in Houston's leading or trending East End, it is currently, on a daily basis, processes and receives over 1 million pounds of coffee from all over the world, utilizing state-of-the-art technology to provide bulk silo storage, cleaning, blending, steaming, and decaffeination services. Eximus is also the major national player in private label beverage production for companies such as H-E-B, Walgreens, Meijer, Maxwell House, and others. At the end of 2014, Mr. Aldecoa sold Maximus Coffee to a group of global commodity traders and went into the distillery business. And he is currently, Gulf Coast Distilleries is the largest whiskey distiller in the state of Texas. A graduate of the University of Houston with a degree in industrial engineering. We're so glad to have him today. Please help me welcome Carlos de Aldecoa.
Well, thanks for the great introduction and the great honor of being here in front of you guys today. For me, the University of Houston was a great part of my life, and I'm going to go through a little bit of my lifeline and why U of H was important to me in the way I approach my education, and how that helped me be kind of somebody that's accomplished certain elements of the life that I think as an entrepreneur has enjoyed quite a bit. So, as you can see, there's a picture there of my grandfather. We're a third-generation family-owned company, so we started in Spain in the 1920s around coffee manufacturing and coffee production. Then, during the Civil War in Spain, my grandfather moved to Mexico and started the coffee operations down in Mexico. Again, we're a third-generation family-owned company. I am part of the third generation, and we have actually some of our nieces and nephews actually starting to get into the business. I started actually my education career in the U.S. I went to straight Jesuit for high school. Then I went to the University of Houston, and I started in the College of Business. And as I got involved into more understanding kind of the day-to-day operations at my dad's companies and always being involved in manufacturing, processing manufacturing, I changed my career from business to the College of Engineering. And that was a decision that I made by being able to work while I was at the university and realize what courses I needed to be better prepared as opposed to just targeting to get a specific degree. So it took me close to 5 years to graduate. I told my dad the reason was because I was having to work and change my career. He still questions that, but ultimately I love what I did, and I'm trying to actually have all my nieces and nephews that are in higher education work while they're actually at school to understand and apply what they're learning at the university. For me, that was a big key on taking additional courses. So during actually my education at U of H, I was able to work in my dad's business and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. One of them was not necessarily work for my dad, but create my own company within the family business. So at the time when I was a senior in college, I asked my father if I could, put together a business plan, if I could buy the Uncle Ben's rice plant that had just shut down in the east part of town. So we negotiated to buy that plant from Uncle Ben's or Mars and convert that from a rice facility to a coffee facility. So my dad's not only, but one of the important conditions to loaning me the money is that I had to repay it in 2 years, and it was going to be a loan. It was not going to be equity into the business. So I had to quickly figure out how I was going to get that plant up and running as I was still working in the other businesses and getting my undergraduate degree. So in a matter of about 12 years, we converted that facility from a bulk rice processing facility with great legacy. That plant was built in the 30s and 40s by the Department of Defense as the first instant rice plant in the world. And actually, the rice for the troops in World War II came out of that plant. And it's not until the 40s and 50s that changed into Uncle Ben's rice, and then we bought it from Uncle Ben's Rice. So it's a significant asset, very complex facility, and we were able to convert it from blending and steaming and processing rice, rough rice coming in and packaging it, to processing coffee. So within, again, that 12-month period, we converted it to what is the largest bulk coffee processing facility in North America. So on any given day, we can move over 2 million pounds of coffee with 2 operators, all HMI controlled for the whole facility there. We store coffee in silos ranging from 40,000 pounds to 500,000 pounds. And I think a lot of that was just creativity of how do you retool and repurpose an asset that, for me, a tank is a tank, whether it holds corn or rice or coffee, and retooling it to create a product that people want or service that people want. So, again, over that 12-month period, there was a lot of work to be done, a lot of creativity, a lot of pain of being in that facility and figuring out how I was going to make this thing work. For me personally, and also kind of the needing to pay my dad sooner than the 2-year timeline. which we did. So over that time period, that facility has continued to operate. It's been in business now for 25 years and continues to operate at a very successful green coffee blending and storage operation. So the Cadeco group today owns and operates about 1 million square feet on the east part of town dedicated to green coffee storage. If you can think about coffee, coffee is a globally traded commodity like oil, right? We're actually second in trading volume to oil. Yet all the coffee has to be imported from about 45 countries. So coffee cannot be grown in the US, it has to be imported from, like I said, 40 countries. The only one that grows is Hawaii, but it's quite expensive. And for us to grow and become a larger global player in coffee once we got the silo started, we needed to eliminate something that a lot of us would probably want to do in other industries, is the ad valorem tax of our inventory of green coffee stored in Harris County. Because as we compete as a traded commodity with companies in Switzerland that are storing and carrying the futures traded commodities, they're not going to be paying an HISD tax for their inventory sitting here, their financial commodity, like they wouldn't have to do it in New York and New Orleans and Miami. So for us to do that, we paired up with, we formed an association and paired up with the Port of Houston, a couple different senators, and we got an amendment to the state constitution passed that eliminated taxation on green coffee stored in Harris County. So what that allowed us to do is to get the exchange designation for Houston to become a delivery port for a traded commodity, and today it's in the top 5 ports in the world. So we've gone from being just a throughput port to now being one of the top 5 recognized global ports for coffee trading. So by doing that, we had to put an economic analysis in place to show the economic benefit of doing this. So we have coffee roasting companies, we have transportation companies, brokerage, any industry that supports the coffee industry overall has moved in and around Houston or into Texas. So you can look at Farmer Brothers Coffee relocating from California to Texas, Mother Parkers moving from Canada to Texas, in Tyler there's Distant Lands, so there's significant roasting that's moving into the state of Texas because of the Port of Houston and this legislation. So one of my biggest customers, and I'll go through this briefly, but one of my biggest customers through the coffee industry that we were shipping the blended coffee was the Maxwell House plant here in Houston. So in 2006 and 2005, we proposed to Kraft to buy that asset. That's a 1 million square foot plant, over 500 employees, union plant, that we made rice, all the minute rice in North America. We made Kool-Aid, we made coffee, decaf coffee, and so forth. So we bought that facility in 2006 as a single purpose entity. Kraft was actually looking at shutting that plant down and relocating that capacity overseas. We kept that plant open and actually diversified from having one customer, being Maxwell House, to having over 20 customers in there. So we brought in Folgers, we brought in Nestle, we brought in Starbucks, Sara Lee, Melita, a lot of large global customers into that facility. In 2014, I decided to sell that asset to a Swiss trading group that ultimately would take that capacity and move it on a more global scale. So we had pretty much reached our capacity for a major plant that could process probably 400 to 500 million pounds of coffee a year. We reached about a 70-75% utilization, and it had to go to a global capacity to position that decaf and coffee roasting. So again, there's some pictures of some of the products that you see there. Café Diario is our family product that was started with my grandfather in Mexico. Aldecoa, which is a legacy kind of brand that we created to kind of talk about our legacy in the coffee business. And then we have Capio, which is a ready-to-drink cold brew coffee. After the sales of Maximus, when I sold that in 2014, I wanted to diversify, continue to operate the coffee companies that we have, whether it's Eximus Coffee, like Mike mentioned, or the Cadeco operation, but we wanted to diversify into other industries within the commodity space. So we started a sugar operation in La Porte. So we have about a 300,000 square foot facility down in La Porte where we package about 5 million cases of sugar a year. So we're the largest packer of organic premium sugar in North America. So we package for anybody from a Costco to a Whole Foods, all the 365 brand, all the Kirkland. So it's a major facility of receiving a commodity product, doing a value add, and selling it into the market. That was done by creating, what I look at it, is strong leadership within the organization. So we have a lot of Cougs that work actually in the organization. Some have master's degrees, some have undergraduate degrees. Believe it or not, probably 80% of my direct reports are women. Maybe that's because I have 4 sisters, so I've kind of figured out, one way to operate in that environment. And very successful, 4 out of my 4 sisters, 2 graduated from U of H as well. One from Bauer and one from Hotel Restaurant Management. So as we started the sugar operation and we looked at streamlining that process, I said, well, why don't we actually look at utilizing part of the silo for something else. So I said, well, why don't we start making whiskey? So we actually started Gulf Coast Distillers in 2015. Utilizing corn that is grown outside of Houston, utilizing rye, wheat, barley, and a lot of different products. I didn't know how to make whiskey. I knew how to drink it and how to, have fun with it. But the way that I figured out how to do it, I said at this point I had to realize that I didn't really have the skill set to make whiskey. We could mix and pack sugar because that's a granulated product, but when we have to start fermenting and mashing and distilling, we need to know what we're doing. So at that point, I was lucky enough to connect with David Pickerel. So David Pickerel was a master distiller that created Willet, created Maker's Mark, and created Whistle Pig. So we designed and retooled part of the facility at Uncle Ben's or the Cadeco site to create whiskey. So we have fermentation, distillation, and processing, and we are filling approximately 400 to 600 barrels of whiskey any given month as of today that we're putting into our warehouse. We have approximately 12 brands. You can see some of the brands that we have up there. We have Giant, which is our flagship brand, and we have vodka brands, gin brands that we're selling nationally. So we have Round Rock Vodka that we sell in actually 26 states, and some of the other, you'll find them at BJ Hooker's we purchased. Round Rock we actually created. So it's been a mix and match of creating brands or buying brands in the premium, midstream, and low-tier categories with award-winning liquids. And the idea behind the business plan behind it was not just utilize the asset and have fun at doing it, creating a product people want, but ultimately being able to take a quality product, and we kind of saw that on the coffee side, and have the consumer not necessarily overpay for it. So instead of buying a $30 to $50 bottle of Texas whiskey, you can buy a $20 award-winning bottle of whiskey because of the scale of the capacity that we have in the plant. So we wanted to leverage our experience in manufacturing and processing to develop value for the consumer. Another small expansion that we did is we actually got into the beer side of the business. So we bought a brew house, and we're making a beer brand that we bought called Tejas Beer that is going to be launching in HEB Q1. So the idea behind it is actually a bolt-on and expansion into our distilling operations. So we can just go ahead and, very similar process, when you make whiskey, you're making beer. What you're doing is distilling that beer. So we're actually cutting it short and putting it right into the can, and we'll be making 4 different styles of beer that will go into the market. So the last thing we did is we actually opened a tasting room. So a lot of distilleries, as you've seen, will open a tasting room and an on-site kind of bar and tours day one. I wanted to wait until the very end, until we had our processes and our facilities streamlined to do that, to open to the public. Because we're not just a craft little distillery, we got major equipment and major processes going in the plant from a safety and operational standpoint. I thought it was the right thing to do to just wait and do it right and do each one of the steps process timely. So we opened Ben's Den, and we called it Ben's Den for Uncle Ben's. It's actually in a building that was built in the 1940s, and we can fit about 250 people. And the idea behind it is to create a unique experience for the consumer, where they can taste not just the products that we make. We also have Kentucky whiskey brands, Tennessee whiskey brands that will buy 12-year-old Kentucky or 12-year-old Tennessee or Canadian whiskey and bottle it on site so we can sell it in the tasting room. So that became part of the experience. And obviously, my dad reminded me that we needed a coffee maker in there so we can also serve coffee for people coming in. So I think for me, in my experience, the success, and if you want to call it success, or just the passion to the business, has come to just being relentless and just having fun at it. Creating a good team, and I think the biggest lesson for me on creating a good team is create a good team before you need a good team. So you've got to be able to mentor and bring the right people, and I would call it over-hire initially, have them be passionate and have them be kind of contagious to what you're trying to do, and build that organization. So, I mean, a lot of my team has been great at what they've done and contributed, and they've allowed me to kind of go crazy and start doing all these different projects because of the team that we have. And a lot of my leadership, like I mentioned before, they truly are Cougs and they truly are graduates of the university. So I owe a lot of that to the University of Houston because of the graduates that I've been able to hire and because I was able to work, commute, and develop my career at a very young age. Again, one of the biggest things for me, like I said, is giving back. So I belong on a couple different nonprofit boards that are kind of near and dear to my heart. And improving people's life is a top reason for business. So I mean, I think when I look at my company, what do I do and why do I do it? It's not just to make a profit or to make a product. It's to allow to improve people, to improve society, to give back through opportunity, through education, through career advancement, or just necessarily through drinking better whiskey and better coffee. So one way or another, we do want to give back to society. Again, I want to really thank the opportunity to speak here, Mike, and be in front of you guys, and we'd love to invite you anytime to go to the Ben's Den and take a tour of the distillery and see what we're all about. Thank you.